for the entire academic year, which is the Adventures in Italian Opera with Fred Plotkin. Yes, a round of applause for Fred, who has been running this really fortunate series for many years, and we love it because we are we always have the opportunity to get to hear from Fred and from his fantastic guests. I won't say anything about the guest tonight because Fred himself will be introducing Ryan Speedo Green, but I just want to say a couple of words about Fred. Fred is very well known by all of us. He's an expert in all things Italian, so he tells everything about Italy you might want to know. He talks about opera mostly for us here at Casa Italiana, but he's also the kind of person to go to for food, Italian culture, literature, everything. And I can't really think of, I'm Italian myself, and I keep learning from Fred about Italian things. So, I think that says a lot about what he has to offer us in terms of Italian. In terms of opera, I just want to remind that he's the author of Opera 101, a complete guide to learning and loving opera, which continues to be a must read for anybody who's into this art form. And of course, he's the author of many other things, but I won't take time out of the event tonight for the long list of Fred's publication. So I just would like to invite Fred and his guest tonight to the podium, and please give them a round of applause. And thank you for being with us tonight.
Actually, let me take that. So, good evening, buonasera. Before I introduce my guest, who's also my friend, I'm proud to say, we already began this season of Adventures in Italian Opera earlier than usual, and we had one spot that we couldn't fill. The person who wanted to come, she couldn't come, and so on. So I never announced the season, but I'm going to do that tonight, even though it's the third night already. We had, and by the way, people watching at home, take out your notepad so you can note these. We had on September 12th Alvise Casalati, the conductor from Italy. It's on video. We had on October 2nd Christian Van Horn, bass-baritone. We have Ryan Speedo Green tonight, bass-baritone. We have on November 14th Patrick Carfizzi, bass-baritone.
Yes, I like this. Yes.
And
see
then
a trend here.
we have a gap. And then on March 5th, we have Renee Pape, bass.
Okay.
Just to be a little different. April 1st, Federica Lombardi, soprano. April 22nd, Isabel Leonard, mezzo-soprano. April 29th, Corrado Ravadius, music director of Opera Philadelphia, and an Italian. So, we'll see you for all of those. Tonight, I want to introduce someone who many of you know and have loved his work and watched his very quick ascent. I don't know if you think it's quick, but it's been quick, relatively quick. Ryan Speedo Green, known as Speedo, who is bass-baritone, a wonderful artist, a great guy, a wonderful story about him. But I'm going to focus mostly tonight on the current opera singer. So please welcome Ryan Speedo Green. Julian, please play number 1.
Well, I am bass baritone Ryan Speedo Green, and it's my pleasure to be the honorary chair of Opera America's National Opera Week, which takes place October 26th to November 4th, hashtag Opera Week. It's such an amazing honor to be a part of this special week because opera, for me, is the quintessential art form that encompasses all art forms, from dance to set and stage design to the amazing acoustics of the opera houses that various opera singers sing in. I came to opera when I was 15 years old, and I took a field trip to New York City to see Carmen at the Metropolitan Opera. And for me, it was such an amazing experience, not only because it was the Metropolitan Opera and all the majesty that is the Metropolitan Opera, but the leading character, the main character on stage playing Carmen was the African-American mezzo-soprano Denise Graves. For a 15-year-old African-American boy from Virginia, having the main character be someone who looks like me made this art form, at first glance, tangible. I will admit, the first time I thought about opera, I thought of it as being like a big fat white Viking lady breaking windows, sort of that Looney Tunes caricature. But as I saw my first opera and then I continued to see more, I realized that there are operas that are comedic and make you laugh, but there are also operas that have such thrilling and dramatic storylines that you're left like with your jaw on the ground. If I was telling someone who was coming to Opera Week who was new to opera, I would tell them that when I was 15 and I went to my first opera, I sort of jumped through a door that I had no idea where it would take me. And when I got into that door, I got introduced to a world of complete majesty and beauty and history that not only was in that moment of me seeing that performance, but spans hundreds of years.
And Julia now plays number 2. So, serious question. When you saw Carmen when you were 15, did you envision yourself singing in it at the Met?
No, I did not. I honestly, the irony is, at the time, I was a wannabe tenor, so I saw myself in a different role, let's just say, than Escamillo. But when I was 15, seeing that for the first time, honestly, I tried to go back and think about the cast around it, but Denise was so, magnetic and charismatic. At 15, being my first opera, every time she stepped on the stage, I could only see her, and I could only hear her. And that's the sign not only of a true superstar, but talk about just a personality, a stage presence.
She is. She's beautiful also.
That is also true.
But it's not central.
No.
Because there are a lot of beautiful and handsome people who are not necessarily compelling on the stage.
I agree.
But you have now performed in operas with her.
I have, yes.
So are you starstruck when you're opposite her?
It was...
You were Jake in Porgy and Bess, she was Mariah.
The irony, that wasn't the first time. So I spent pretty much half my... So I sang... I saw my first opera, with her at 14, 15, and then it was about, I think actually I was 29 or 30 years old, 15 years later, I was singing my first run of Bohème at the Met as Colline, and the first time an opportunity to sing an aria of that caliber, Vecchiatimata, on the Met stage, one of the most iconic productions, Zerilli production, iconic moments in all of the Met opera, had my moment, and this had just been the time that the book about my life had come out, Sing for Your Life, had come out. And I come backstage, and my high school that I came with to see my first opera was also there to see me sing my first big role at the Met. And in the green room where I came to meet Denise at the end of that show and have my first experience with a diva. They had their first experience with another diva. And as I'm walking into the green room, knowing that I'm about to meet my high school, I walk in and there's Denise Graves. And I start crying, and immediately, because I can't believe this, moment was happening. She said that someone had told her about this singer that she had inspired to become an opera singer, and how he's singing at the Met. And she was in DC at the time. She's like, I have to come up and see this young man. And she came to see my show, and then I was lucky enough to be in Porgy and Bess with her a couple years later. Yeah.
Now, if you know the opera Porgy and Bess, Mariah is sort of, when I teach that opera, I explain that there are two characters, Mariah and Serena. And Serena is the church, and Mariah is the law.
I agree.
And so Denise Graves played the law, and at a certain point, fillets a fish on stage.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
It is one of the most gripping things. It's like Tosca and Scarpia, the way she deftly handled that knife, and singing and yelling at people, not yelling, but I mean criticizing and bossing people around, and cutting the fish. It was just acting. It was operatic acting at its best, plus a lot of great singing. I'm going to sing her praises a little more, and then we're going to get back to you.
Yes, of course.
She is wonderful mezzo-soprano, but she's also one of the most generous in terms of bringing along talent, and focuses on bringing along talent, and has a foundation and teaches. But I know many artists of your age who, when they talk about their first experience with opera or their first sense that opera was great, it was Denise Graves who gave them that feeling.
Imagine, the world we live in today, where everything is social media and can be done by video. I feel like sometimes it's less personal. Like, we're into people's lives, but because we're into people's lives so quickly, that actual personal connection of talking to someone face to face is less important. And I remember at 14, 15 years old, she's the lead at one of the greatest opera houses in the world, and she spent about 45 minutes after that performance in the green room with 35 kids from Virginia. And I mean, in this back in the day before we had cell phones and everything, so she took Polaroid pictures, because we had Polaroid cameras with every student, including me. And I'm standing there waiting my turn, to come up to her, and she called me her boo and gave me a hug, and I was in love, and I took a picture with her, and I remember that moment that this person who I thought was larger than life spent 45 minutes with little old me, and that gave me the idea of how a true diva, how a true superstar should be. That was an amazing moment for me as an artist.
Yep. So you mentioned, I'm going to just mention it briefly in passing, that the book is called Sing for Your Life, and it's by Daniel Bergner. And the reason I mention it in passing is it's very well documented. You should read the book. You were on 60 Minutes. There was wonderful coverage on CBS. It's about Speedo's early life and his beginnings. And I do want you to explore that. But what I've chosen to talk to you about tonight is, I guess because I work in opera, because I've watched you for a long time in your growth. That's really the point, is that there are many people who at the age of 24, whatever it was, have an early splash, and then that's it. And a lot of them, frankly, don't come along and grow as artists.
Yeah.
You have shown exponential growth as an artist.
Yeah, I will agree. We're about to probably see that. So I'm looking at these clips. You're about to see that.
Well, but that's really the point, is I have a couple of very young clips of you.
Oh, yeah.
You were heavier.
Yeah.
You sing well. You have a beautiful natural voice. But anyone who hears you now, who knows opera, or even if they don't, notices a remarkable growth. And I think it's terrific, not just for all the obvious reasons, but because you and maybe other people around you have emphasized that.
Yeah.
And frankly, there are many singers I know who sort of stay locked in, and they do well what they do, but they don't grow as artists. And there are many singers, but there are not many artists.
I agree.
and you're not allowed to say it. I am. You're an artist.
No, I definitely. That's a matter of opinion from people who watch, but
no,
yeah.
it's really true.
Yeah.
And frankly, among the reasons I wanted you here tonight is because you're 38, something like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
30 years old. Yeah.
So many 38-year-old opera singers, especially with lower voices, are still in
Finding
their
their way.
infancy.
Yeah.
And you really have come along very well. You're doing leading roles, but in such a diverse type of range of roles
Yeah.
and characters and languages. And I was going through your opera repertoire.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm just going to name the composers, not all the, but just alphabetically: Bellini, Beethoven, Bizet, Blanchard, Boito, Britten, Donizetti, Dvorak, Carlisle, Floyd, George Gershwin, Gounod, Mozart, Mussorgsky. And I want to talk about Mussorgsky because you were terrific in that. Offenbach, Puccini, only one role. Rossini, Richard Strauss, Giuseppe Verdi, Weber, and Richard Wagner quite a bit.
The irony is, I only one Puccini role at the Met, but I've done, I would say, Puccini-wise, I've done 2 roles in Fanciulla.
Okay.
I've done,
That's right.
I've done Timur.
And the Mandarin.
Yeah, I've done the Mandarin. That was my debut.
Yes.
At the Met.
I was there.
Not only that, Colline. The irony is, the Fanciulla, I did both 2 roles at the same time by accident. Because 24 hours before the show went up, the person who was singing one of the roles got indisposed.
Yeah.
And the cover was indisposed as well. And so Thomas Lausmann, who was
Yeah.
the Studienleiter at the Wiener Staatsoper at the time where I
Right.
was, knew that I was capable of learning things very quickly because of my time at the Met and
Yep.
as a young artist. And I was able to basically, in 24 hours, learn a role I had never sung before and sing it on stage of the Wiener Staatsoper in the premiere,
So,
plus the role that I was already singing. So I had very nice wigs.
but I imagine that you were 2 of the guys who were part of the circle around Minnie in the first act, Minnie, La Fanciulla del West.
Yeah.
Did you take on both their person? How did you switch over?
So I will tell you the first role was easier to do because the one that I learned over 24 hours was easier to do. I'm not going to tell you which one because
All right.
maybe you'll go back and listen or watch it and see which one it was. It was much easier to do because it was cut and blank. It was not the other role was harder because of the stuff that was surrounding it. But I'll see if you'll be able to even notice the 2 characters that I was because they do such good makeup and wigs that you won't be able to tell.
Well, I don't have that
They'll be
video
able to pick
now,
me out.
but
It's
we'll
Vienna.
look
You'll be
for
able to
it.
pick me out.
No, the other night, if anyone went, and I always recommend people do this, to the Richard Tucker Foundation Gala.
It was amazing.
Barry Tucker sat in that seat. Anthony Roth Costanzo sat in that seat. A lot of the people there
Yeah.
sat in that seat. Nadine Sierra. But Anthony Roth Costanzo is now doing a one-man marriage at Figaro, in which he goes from the Count to Susanna, I guess, back and forth.
Yeah,
back and
putting
forth.
us all to shame.
Yeah, in which he literally spins and he goes from a lower voice, higher voice, to lower voice.
His
higher
baritone,
voice.
yeah, he's a beautiful
Yeah.
baritone.
And
Yeah.
so I sort of picture you doing that in La Fanciulla del West with a cowboy and holster and hats and so on.
Yes, it could be nice.
You were in the Met's Young Artist Program. the
Yes.
Lindemann Young Artist Program. And by the way, I meant to mention, you are here tonight courtesy of the Metropolitan Opera. You're
Thank you,
appearing
Metropolitan Opera.
in Il Trovatore, which I went to last night, which you should definitely go to.
It's amazing.
And you will be appearing later in Die Frau ohne Schatten, not your typical Italian opera, but we're going to talk about that a bit.
As well as Moby-Dick.
As well as Moby-Dick,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah. Never been done at the Met, so that should be. You'll get to see me in
That's in
full body
March.
tattoos.
That's in March, and that is a really, I've seen it, I went to the premiere in Dallas. It's a really wonderful opera by J. Kagi. I'm going to go several times. I forgot the name of your character.
Yeah, a Queequeg. So
Queequeg,
I,
that's
you know,
right, yeah.
I believe at least from the libretto. I'm not sure. I've never seen the production because it was in San Francisco when I could have seen it, but I was doing something else at the time. But I believe I get to die on stage. So I've always wanted to die on stage, It's
You
the
will.
tenors always get to do it. The tenors always get to do it, but finally it's my chance.
No, it's a fantastic opera.
Spoiler.
If you saw Dead Man Walking by Jake Heggie, that's a wonderful, perhaps more acclaimed opera, and I love it, and I've seen it many times. I actually prefer Moby-Dick among Jake Heggie's operas. It's a really wonderful opera, so do go. People sometimes get allergic to, quote, modern opera, but it's a wonderful
But it's
opera.
also a story I'm sure all of you guys know here.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of the few things I can say, like, if you like Moby Dick the story, you will like this version of his story told on stage.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So, while in the Met's Young Artist program, you did various smaller roles at the beginning of your career, and then there was sort of a point not too long ago where you were doing simultaneously starring roles and featured roles. You used the word, he and I were talking outside comprimario, which is a character actor kind of role, and I said, no, at this point it's called luxury casting. But where you're not necessarily the lead.
Yeah.
And maybe that has to do with bass-baritone as opposed to tenor, but maybe it also has to do with the fact that you're showing an artistic flexibility. Is it your choice to do smaller roles sometimes?
Honestly, like, for me, it's not only to dip my feet into as many styles as I can, because once I start where I'm heading, which I'm doing in bigger and lead roles, you have less flexibility with the kind of rep you can sing consistently. Because as much as I love singing modern opera, then singing Mozart the day after a lead, a big Mozart role it's almost impossible vocally. Even singing Wagner and then singing Verdi, the right after that I wouldn't recommend for anybody. Like, it's as much as, proper technique will get you through everything. Like, there are differences in the way that certain styles are sung, from the difference of bel canto to even Mozart, to Handel, to Russian music.
Yeah.
There you have to have great technique to be good at any of these things. But when you're singing lead and major roles in these styles, and then you delve into something else very soon after, it can be detrimental to your vocal health. And so for me now, at this point in my career, I'm trying to sing as many styles of opera, so I can find what. First of all, I want to be amongst the people that I idolize and the people that I like, because I've always been a watcher. As much as I'm a talker, if you know me, you'll know that I love to talk. I love to listen and watch. And my greatest improvements as an artist has not necessarily been in a practice room or with my coach. It's been in a rehearsal room watching someone like Renee Pape or Placido Domingo or, Jonas Kaufmann or Peter Mattei, watching these, Katrina Dalaman, watching these singers, these artists, create roles and start from, even roles that they've done before, how they make it different, how they interact with their directors, how they interact with their conductors. I'm always watching and absorbing and in understanding what I shouldn't do and what I should do, and what works for me, compartmentalizing every detail. And I will tell you, that is the reason why I've been able to sing or be a part of so many different genres of opera, is because I'm never afraid to sit in a room and watch and take and absorb.
But I agree with you, but I suppose part of my question was, do you ask for some of these smaller, diverse roles, or do they offer them?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Like, I really, I know that for me, like, I'm probably not going to be singing a lot of French opera in the next, like, 3 or 4 years. So I wanted to sing in something French as if I could, in the moment that I could do it, because for me, I love French opera. It's just that where I'm heading career-wise and direct in the immediate future is not leaning toward French music.
Right.
And so I wanted to be absorbed in it as much as I could. That's why I did Fire Shut Up My Bones as well as Escamillo at the same time, back to back. Was because it was a dream for me to be in Carmen, and that production to me was awesome. And the cast was bananas, and if I could just be a small part of that, I felt like I'm living a dream.
I'm going back to Mussorgsky's opera Boris
Yeah.
Godunov, in part because I really love Mussorgsky, and we don't see him enough.
Oh, I love him too.
But also because Renee Pape played the lead, played Boris, which is a role that you one day could play.
Oh, you're from your lips to opera god's ears.
Okay. And I've seen many men do it. I worked on the famous production that had Martti Talvela back in the 80s, and he was just, you and I, when you work on the role, we'll talk about Martti Talvela. But it's an opera full of rich characters and small roles. And you played Varlam,
Yeah.
which is often someone that you don't quite notice. He's just there in the first act with the innkeeper, and it's sort of busy, slight comedy before we get to the tragedy. You and Tashina Vaughn, who was the innkeeper, made it such a rich moment that, frankly, I noticed that scene, there are 9 scenes, that scene more than I usually ever do. And so this was right at the end of the first part of the pandemic, and the Met was just getting back on its feet, and there was a lot of tension. The Met miraculously never canceled the performance.
Yeah.
But what was that like, developing a role, working, frankly, next to Renee Pape, who's here March 5th, who is one of my opera gods, and therefore anything that you would do with him is just really a learning experience.
Yeah, I mean, I was, in my, I guess, 13 seasons at the Met. Hard to think of that. I'm 30 years old and have 13 years at the Met, but I do, which is, thank you. My first ever German opera that I was ever in was Parsifal at the Met, the new production. Yep. And I was a second night, Zweite Ritter, and Renee Pape was Goedermans. And I had never been in a room with him before. Including, Jonas Kaufmann, Katrin Dalaman, Yevgeny, Peter Matea. I remember every cast member because it was kind of one of the biggest moments of my life, realizing that I like German music. I mean, honestly, like my entire career before that was Zauberflöte, which of course I had seen and known, but for me, it didn't do anything for me.
Right.
And that's why I love opera, because it's about what you like and what you don't like. And everybody can like stuff and everybody can not like stuff, even me, an opera singer. And when I was in a rehearsal room watching these artists, the Germans, Wagner, opera singing gods of the time, create arguably one of the greatest productions the Met had put on the last 15, 20 years. If you haven't seen Parsifal, you're doing yourself a disservice to go see it. I knew I was seeing something special, even though my role was probably 45 seconds of music in an opera that's probably 4 hours long.
6 hours long.
Yeah, I remember sitting. I asked I was in Sil Lindemann program. I asked if I could sit in the rehearsals, just because I thought I know something was magical happening. Yeah. And Renee, who had done the role many times by that point, was creating something brand new with this French Canadian director, and Jonas called. Everybody was buying into this production in a way that I just didn't assume could happen. And especially to a non-German speaking director, for all these German speakers to give into this direction, I knew something was happening, and that kind of idolship, I guess I had at the time, watching all these people, sort of prepared me for what my future would be, realizing how an artist creates a major role. And so moving forward, skipping ahead, I also had been in productions with Renee in Vienna, and never actually had talked to him. The irony, I was maybe it was just fear of or just being scared of arguably someone who is top 3 in the world of his voice type, has legendary Hall of Fame kind of career. I just didn't have the guts to go up and talk to him. And, I even rode a train with him once. And I sat across from him and was like, this is your moment, Speedo. You should talk to him. And I was like, no, I can't do it. And he sat in front of me, and we walked to the same rehearsal spot. I was just like, I don't want to think I'm stalking him. Let me just wait here while he walks into the room, and I'll come in after. And obviously in the opera Boris Godunov, I'm not with him on stage. So we actually never interact as characters. My scene is almost like an island by itself. Which doesn't allow me to interact with any other characters. And so we had our zits, on the Met stage.
Sitz meaning it's not a complexion thing.
Yeah.
Sitzprobe means
Yeah.
a sitting rehearsal to run through.
Yeah, to
with
run
the
through all the
music.
music with the orchestra.
Yeah.
And this is, me singing Varlam with the Met Orchestra. Renee's there, everybody's there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. And I'm listening to him sing, and everybody's singing. And so it comes to my scene, and I'm the only person who has an actual aria in the show. I have like this 2.5 minute patter aria in Russian. And I sing it, and I leave this. I think I did a good job. I'm like, okay, Speedo didn't faint, or and Renee's standing over there. He didn't laugh at you, or you did a good job. So I go back to my dressing room, and Lord and behold, there's a knock on my door, and it is Renee Pape at my door, and I'm just kind of like, hi, Mr. Pape, and he says to me, he's like, do you sing Boris? And I was like, no. He's like, you should. Mm-hmm. He's like, you have everything you need for that role. He's like, you're definitely going to be singing that in the future. Yeah. And he walked away, and again, from his lips to whoever's listening out there is casting Boris Godunov. Think of me. But no, it was he being in a room with him. He's more of a doer than a talker. And that's sometimes, I can imagine can be intimidating to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. He gave me word of encouragement that I didn't see coming. And let me just say, he said that to me. And then days later, I started getting inquiries about singing bigger roles in certain places. And I have no idea if he had any part of that. But getting praise from someone like that is it's life-changing.
Because artists, Renee Pape in this case, recognize artistry in younger people. And the most generous artists are not the ones who compete with the future, but foster the future. And so it would not surprise me one bit.
And the irony is I'll never put names to the person this is, but I've experienced in my short little career the opposite, where someone could not stand the fact that I was singing too loud, or that I was more on pitch, or that I was singing in front of them, and they requested that I stand in the back because they're the lead and I'm a supporting character, and made sure when I would sing they would cover their ears. And they're opera singers, and they would do this in front of me. And I've experienced this kind of opposite reaction to my voice and to my pursuit of trying to give this art form everything I have, and that can be troublesome to a young singer. And I'm glad that I had a supporting cast around me who let me know that it was his insecurity that he was doing that, not my voice, but his insecurity.
The reason I asked you about smaller roles is that I remember perfectly the day that I began at the Met and signed a contract there, because one other person was signing her contract the same day, and she went on to become a major soprano star. And we're not naming names here, but her policy was to never take a small role, because she turned down medium-sized soprano roles, even Musetta, because she felt that she had to be seen in Met management, and not only as the lead and as the star, as the prima donna, or she would never have a career. And she did have a longish career until she ran out of roles that she could do that were age and vocally appropriate. So I asked you because that was her policy, and I'm not saying she was wrong, because she did have a big career, but at a certain point it just stopped.
That's interesting. That's almost I hear that, and I almost think back to my first days in Lindemann program, where I think to this day, I think Sarah Billinghurst, my first meeting, me and my two other first-year Lindemann artists were in the basement of the Met. I call it the dungeon, but the basement of the Met. And Sarah Billinghurst comes in to give us this is when she was working at the Metropolitan Opera. She
was
retired.
Artistic manager, yeah.
Yeah, and she came to us and said, this is the Metropolitan Opera. There's no such thing as a small role at the Metropolitan Opera. People who've sung lead roles in other places can walk in the door and sing the roles that you're singing. And if you give the attention, the detail, and the effort towards your small role, you will be noticed. And it will affect your career outside of here, and also on stage. And I'll tell you, I made a living I made a name for myself. I had never sung a lead role until 2 years ago, yet my name was on people's lips for being an artist, to be known, to be recognized. Yet I had never sung a lead role in my entire life until 2 years ago. And that goes to show, again, the effort I put in on my ensemble roles, my comprimario roles, were of the effort that someone would give to a lead role, because there's no such thing as a small role if you put the effort into it and make it so.
So you right now are appearing in Il Trovatore.
Yes.
And you were commenting before a very famous line that all you need to do Il Trovatore is the 4 best singers in the world. But the 4 roles that are involved, that's not one of your roles.
No.
So therefore, I would either argue that you need 5 of the best, or you need luxury casting in the smaller role. It's interesting because this season, again, you're having starred in productions that were built around you, new productions at the Met, are now doing smaller roles again. And as you just said, and I agree, nothing at all wrong with smaller roles. But what does it feel like to do that now, having the opera was called Champion, and then Fire Shut Up in My Bones, in the revival you played the lead, not in the original. But the opera Champion, which is a fabulous opera, we can talk about it a bit, really was centered on you. You were on billboards all over the city and shirtless, and you lost a lot of weight and all that. And we're going to show one video of Speedo heavier. So you'll see what wonderful job he did really get into shape, which is an important aspect of having a career, not just when you have to play a boxer, but physical, healthy shape.
Yeah, understanding yourself and your body and what you need.
And but now you're going back to smaller roles, such as the Spirit, I forget what he's called in English.
Spirit Messenger, yeah.
Spirit Messenger in the Frauenarschatten, which is the most confusing opera.
Oh my God.
If you think Il Trovatore is confusing, the Frauenarschatten, which has gorgeous music, and we'll talk about it in a couple of minutes, but going back to smaller roles.
Honestly, again, I'm after doing lead roles in pretty much succession, and also this summer I sang my first Giovanni at Santa Fe Opera Festival. I sang Don Giovanni and Giovanni, and I understood with Champion, because I was co-leading in Champion. One of my idols, Eric Owens, played the older version of me, and I played the younger version of him, whichever you want to look at it. And we co-led that opera. And I finally understood in that moment what it took, for my first lead role to be a role that physical, because most singers in opera, they can't say their first lead role they had to do 20 push-ups and sing a high F. Most people don't say that, but I can actually say that. I had to do 20 push-ups on the Met stage and then sing like a high F afterwards, half naked, and somehow they didn't boo me off the stage. But it was an experience that sort of humbled me. It took me literally a year and a half of preparation physically to be able to even pretend to understand the methodology to becoming a boxer and hitting someone and playing that chess game that is boxing, because it's not just a barbaric game, it is a chess game of fist. And then after that, the transition of doing Fire Shut Up in My Bones, portraying a character who is first of all still alive, portraying a character who has experienced, we all say we've experienced trauma. Everybody has their own traumas, and including myself. If you read the shameless book, here we come. So the book Sing for Your Life by Daniel Bergner. You'll read all about my trauma. But the trauma that this character experienced was something I never experienced, and having to every rehearsal, every performance, live in that trauma for 2.5 hours, and still perform in a way that is emotional yet not too emotional where I can't sing, it left me sometimes physically drained in a way that boxing for 3 hours didn't. Even and then having to sing a completely different character like Escamillo right after that, literally the night after, was something I will never do again. I know better now, because again, it's not the music that was hard about Fire Shut Up in My Bones. It was how much of myself I put into it, And I think I realize now as a performer, as an artist, it's what maybe gives me, it's my intangible, is that I put everything into the characters I perform, physically as well as vocally. And that was the first time mentally I broke down sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's something like with lead roles, I now understand, I'm doing Trovatore, and this is an opera that is hit after hit after hit after hit vocally. And a lot of people don't think about the emotion that goes into it, especially like Azucena, the really complex character, and what she had to go through, and what she, to do what she, I don't want to spoil, but what she does and what she goes through to achieve what she wants to achieve, and to have to sing on stage with. And if you put your character, you're really putting yourself in that character and sing the things she sings with the people on stage, and not want to punch someone in the face or claw someone's eyes out. I'm watching. I can't say enough about my colleagues. In the people on stage of the Mountain Trovatore are stage animals. Yeah. And that's something I will say. I love watching some old school opera where people park and bark, and it is some glorious sounds happening. Mm-hmm. But I'm also a huge fan of also opera that can be HD ready, where you can see the emotions on people's face, not just hear the notes and the words.
So I'm going to cut it for a moment. Julian, please play in a minute number 11 and follow it with number 10. These are the brief snippets from the operas Champion and Fire Shut Up in My Bones, both by Terence Blanchard. Champion is the story of Emile Griffith, who was a New Yorker, a boxer, a champion boxer.
6-time welterweight champion.
Who inadvertently kills someone in the ring. And his backstory, let's call it, this is 1962 or so, is that he was gay. But a big macho boxer could not be perceived of as gay, certainly in 1962. And there's a beautiful aria, What Makes a Man, that Speedo sings about the inner turmoil and quandary that he's admired for killing someone, for killing a man.
Not yet. He will be.
Or will be.
He will be out right after this.
Okay. But not for loving a man.
Yeah.
And then the other opera, Fire Shut Up in My Bones, Charles M. Blow is a writer for the New York Times, and we see him on TV all the time. One of the best writers, just as pure writing, who also is very perceptive about politics and society. But I really love his writing, and he wrote a book called Fire Shut Up in My Bones, which is a biblical quote. And you in the revival plays Charles, I forget how they pronounce it, the Louisiana accent.
Charles.
Charles, yeah. So we're going to watch both of these because I want you in the audience here and at home to understand the range that I'm referring to in Speedo, and then we're going to get back to some Italian stuff.
So 11 first, probably, right?
11 and then 10.
Somewhere inside, you hear it beat, you hear it sing, it cries and talks to you, and tells you what you feel is what you feel inside. It makes you strong.
No, the video worked in rehearsal.
Does it make you weak outside?
Okay, there we go.
You hide your soul somewhere inside. You feel it pull, you feel it lift. It carries you and takes you. and somewhere there where love is living, there is a man who is the man I am inside. The man I am and outside. This man that all this world can see. Who is this man? Who is this man who calls himself me? Once was a poem of peculiar grace, a dangerous existence for a man of my race. A black boy from a lawless town where everyone carries a gun. I carried shame in a holster round my waist. A poem of peculiar grace, manhood lost and not found till now. Dreams that kept me awake, isolated by strange desires, have not embraced. A graceful boy in a dangerous place.
So, Julia, now set up number 3, please.
Oh gosh.
I realize that a lot of the people we're talking about, a lot of the artists have all been in this chair.
Yeah.
Most of the cast of Il Trovatore, Jamie Barton, Daniele Caligari, the conductor, Michael Fabiano has been here. And these are all people who are more or less your contemporaries, a little bit older. A little bit. No, I mean...
Yeah. No, it's you say it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I guess they are my contemporaries, aren't they?
And I mention this because I realized this, and if you follow me on Facebook, you saw this. I posted on Facebook the fact that anyone who says that we don't have a wonderful generation of opera singers right now who are in their 30s and 40s is just not paying attention, because we happen to have really great artists, singers, actors, people who are intelligent, who think about their roles, people who are original, people who frankly honor their inner lives. I'm naming Jamie Barton, but also Michael Fabiano, and I would say you and others for whom it's not simply, Quinn Kelsey is another example, Nadine Sierra, others examples of people who somehow combine their talents with introspection. But they don't show the introspection on the stage, but I believe that it nourishes their characterizations. So that these two men that we just had you play, I don't think you had the life experience of either one of
No.
them, and yet you are able to connect with them drawing from your own life experience, even if it's not theirs.
Yep. It also has a lot to do. Any artist, for my, again, I have to say it probably. In my case, I'm the epitome of it takes a village, and I perform and I give everything to my performances, but it's the artistic team and the music staff behind each production that helps bring out the best of me. Because honestly, like for instance, I have ADHD, and I suffer from like when too many things come at me at one time, I tend to shut down. And when I let emotions get to me, like especially I'm my harshest critic. So when I fail at something or when something's not going right, I tend to become my worst enemy in every sense of the way. And I'm so blessed in this art form that, especially at the Metropolitan Opera, like the assistant stage managers, the stage directors, the music staff, who've known me since I was a little opera pup to where I am now, who are able to see where I came from and where I'm at now, to help me create and portray these characters the way I do. Because, again, it's not easy. And I came into Champion thinking one thing, and it became another. I had been in the original production at the Met of Fire Shut Up My Bones, watching the process of my colleague and friend Will Liverman create the character of Charles on stage. And
you played Uncle Paul.
I played Uncle Paul, yeah. And watched him create that role and, win a Grammy with singing it. And I thought it was going to be one way for me, and I came in, and it was not the same way as him. And I had to figure out with that village how I could make Charles my own Charles, because I didn't want it to be Will's. I wanted it to be mine's. And meeting Charles Blow actually in person made me realize how actually physically I'm more like him than Will ever could be.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
and if you meet Charles Blow, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It was an exciting feeling to be the second person to do a role like that, and it was also awesome to realize that I could make something like that my own, which gives me exciting ideas for potential other lead roles that I'll be seeing in the future.
And now that I'm thinking about it, the two lead women in the cast were LaTanya Moore, who plays your mother.
Yeah.
This is
Both
kind
times.
of like... Yeah, I know. I was going to say that she's your mother in both operas.
Yeah.
LaTanya Moore, who I adore, is a very strong personality.
Yeah. She's my big sister.
I think it's fair to say she's a strong personality. She's a wonderful artist. There's no BS with LaTanya Moore, basically. It's just she's very direct. She's from Texas, and she's just direct, which is fun, but it can be bracing. But with that, you also had Angel Blue, who has been in the chair, who is a whole other kind of persona from LaTanya Moore. Very deeply I'm not saying LaTanya's not religious, but Angel Blue's whole aura is about the spirit, in every sense of the word, the spirit. And the characters, plural, that she created in that opera were, and she also played Bess in the Porgy and Bess, and you were Jake. So, and LaTanya Moore played Serena,
Serena,
who was
yeah.
the church as opposed to Denise Graves, the law. When you see these wonderful performers doing very different things, I think my original question was, Will Liverman interacted with the two women very differently than you did as Charles?
Yeah.
And do you think that they were playing their same characters in the same way with Will as they were with you? Or did their characters change when you were the new son/boyfriend?
I think, honestly, I had a different destiny than Will did. So Angel was not
Destiny being a character.
Yeah. She's actually the Angel played three characters in Fire Shut Up My Bones, and so I had Brittany Renee, who the run that I did, and I have known Brittany since before I actually won the Met. I think I was like 22 or 23 when I met Brittany, so we've known each other a very long time. I've actually known Will since he was like 13 years old, which is also really funny to be singing on the greatest opera house in the world from a kid you went to high school with. And he's also younger than me, which is also really awesome.
You're both Virginians,
right?
Yeah.
Me and actually a whole bunch of people who were in all those shows are from my little high school in Norfolk, Virginia. Way to go, Government School, GSA. With LaTanya, I will say, it was an interesting dynamic that me and her have created. She has been my big sister from the moment I met her in Porgy and Bess. I had never met her in person before, and the first time I ever met her, she had put her purse on the chair that I was sitting in, or maybe the chair I wanted to sit in, and I moved her purse and put it on the floor. And I feel like it was a very expensive purse because she got very upset about it. And that was our first meeting. But let me tell you, like afterwards, me and her became like the best of friends.
Yeah.
And she is one of the hugest advocates for my potential back when I was younger. You know, telling me what I could be. And I was also a huge fan of her career at that moment. And so when we finally got the opportunity for her to be my mother in Champion, it was like almost like finally I get to perform with her, and thinking of how she'd be my mother again a year later in a different way, I was like, oh boy, how are we going to change this dynamic? But let me tell you, every performance of Fire at the end, there's a moment where my character gets the courage to tell his mother, LaTanya, his trauma and like why he's been living with this pain for so long, and it's literally the last seconds of the show. Yeah. And every time I would get to this moment with LaTanya, I mean, mind you, we've known each other a very long time, and we've joked and had drinks, and she's met my wife and saw my kids grow up. I look at her and I say, Mama, I got something to tell you. And every time she looks at me and I look at her, we start crying. And literally, it's and every performance, no matter like, and it's like that connection that we have. I'm able to be so real in that moment, that last moment, the last lines my character has. I'm able to be so real, like so genuine, that the audience starts sobbing too, because they can sense that there's something a story being told. Yep. And that's only something you can build with a friendship, with trust, camaraderie, with trust. Yeah, and I fall into her arms like a son would fall into his mother's, and let those tears flow, and she cries too, and then the curtains come down, and she's always like, "Why you always have to make me cry?" And it's funny. I mean, I've done many shows in my life, but that's a moment that probably I could only share with her. Yeah.
This being the Casa Italiana, I'm going to bring it back to something Italian. She, LaTanya Moore, her name is spelled Latonia, and I had her, I do a Friday show called Fred Plotkin on Fridays, and she was a guest early on, and I said to my audience, which is international, I'd like to welcome LaTanya Moore to my program, and she said, no, honey. It's LaTanya, like lasagna.
Yes. And you got to see her Aida too, man. What an Aida.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, Don Giovanni.
Yes.
You just sang the role for the first time completely in Santa Fe this summer.
Yes.
But when you won the Met national competition in 2011?
Yeah, 2011.
2011. One of the arias you sang was from Don Giovanni,
God,
correct?
Forgive me. You're about to see.
And I mean this, as your friend.
Yes.
That I want you to see a very early performance, because I showed you just more recent performances to see the artistic growth and the weight loss.
Yeah.
Because
I was 24 years old in this.
Yeah.
I had not been to the Met yet.
You'd not been to the Met, but that's really the point.
Yes.
Is that, and I began our conversation tonight, and I meant it very seriously, with the fact a lot of people from 24 to 38 artistically don't grow.
Wow.
And you have exponentially. So we can show this, and you can hear the beautiful voice and the beginnings of the talent, but you will come to learn how far he's come in a really short period of time. So Julian, number 3, if you would.
Dopo questo, e le pene che muoio il padre mio, un cavallo poi che io fattivo, osservate, leggete con me, osservate, leggete con me. In Italia 640, in Albania 280, 100 in Francia, Turchia, 91, mai in Spagna, mai in Spagna spongia, il est vrai, il est vrai, il est vrai. O von questi contatives, cameriere citative, o contessi baronesse, marchisane principesse, e con toni grado, toni forma, toni età. In Italia si centra e cantata, in Almania due centro e cantata, cento in Francia, in Turchia, novanta, ma in Spagna sogna il tre, o con questi contentini camerieri cittadini, o con questi baronesse, marchesane, principesse, e vantoni d'ogni grado, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età. E la bontà, e la lusanza, la gentilezza nella bruna, la costanza nella franca, la dolcezza.
So, Julian, next number 7. Speedo, what I'm going to do is quickly go through your long Met career, even though you're still a very young man, so people understand the range. And from basically from that as a very, very young man, You made your debut in 2012 as the Mandarin in Turandot. James Morris, the wonderful bass, was Timur. Then the next opera was Parsifal, the new production, where you played the second night with the Wagnerian all-star cast. Then The Jailer in Tosca, Patricia Rosset and Roberto Olagno, who's been here. And then The Bonze and Madame Butterfly, the guy with the best costume. Then Rambo in... It's a wonderful costume. Then the character Rambo in The Death of Klinghoffer, which was a...
Mayor Giuliani loved, ex-Mayor Giuliani really loved.
Right. It's a wonderful opera that people were ready to hate before they saw it.
Yep, and then they loved it when they saw it.
And then, one night they were doing it at the Met, and I chatted with protesters outside, and they were protesting, and actually they were doing a different opera that night. But they were still upset about Death of Klinghoffer, and I said, "Are you upset about the opera they're doing tonight?" And yes. What's it about? Well, it's about terrorism. I said, no, it's a man in Seville who loves a lot of women, and he has an assistant who has a catalog aria, and so on. Don Giovanni, and I said, this is, a lot of people get upset over that story, but they don't. Then you sang Colline in La Boheme. Then you sang Oroe in Semiramide by Rossini. Often my favorite opera of all.
Called Sammy Rami Day back in the 90s.
Yeah, so Sam Raimi Day.
Sammy Rami Day.
But that, for reasons we won't get into, that was a very troubled production because of change of directors and so on. But it's a magnificent opera. And it's a very different type of singing than anything you had done. Rossini is, to me, some of the hardest singing. Wagner, in a way, is easier if you know what you're doing than Rossini is. Then The King and Aida with that in the Trebko, Anita Rockville-Ishvili, Quinn Kelsey, Nicola Luisotti conducting. Then opening night, or 2019 of Porgy and Bess, Angel Blue, Eric Owens, and you were Jake, the wonderful, very sympathetic character who's with Clara. That's the character I cry from in that opera.
Clara. I love that. The cemetery when they die.
Yeah. And then Fire Shut Up My Bones 2 years later. There was a pandemic as Uncle Paul. Then Varlam and Boris Godunov. Then Truthful Dean and Ariadne of Naxos, a completely other kind of opera with Lisa Davidson, Brenda Jovanovic, Marek Janowski conducting. Isabel Leonard will be here next April. Then the young Emile Griffith and Champion. So it was not until April of 2023 that you had your first starring role.
Yeah, and it was at the Met. My first starring role of my career was at the Metropolitan Opera of all places.
And then Charles, rather than Uncle Paul, in the revival of Fire Shut Up My Bones, and as you said, the next night as Camille and Carmen, and now Ferrando nel Trovatore. So that's a dazzling range of roles because, believe me, most artists who are put on a trajectory are put on the Italian track, the bel canto track, the German track, the contemporary opera track. You've covered all of it. Yeah. And had all of that experience in it. But this being the Casa Italiana, we have to get to Verdi, who's, Rossini's, we know this, Rossini's my favorite composer, but Verdi's my hero. So we're going to hear from Macbeth. Yes. Banco, which is the other aria you sang for your Met audition.
Yes.
Yep. Julia number 7.
Paso Domingo, I think. That's my son. We look very alike. We have the same hair.
Nascer mi sento in Poiché fuggi mio figlio oltre la vita.
I lived. It was all in my head.
So I'm watching our time a bit because I want to be able to show the range of my friend here. Julian, if you had played number 9, these are two brief pieces that are not operatic, just gives me pleasure, so I hope it gives you pleasure. Number 9 and then number 6. That was his first ever Verdi Requiem.
Yeah, actually, the irony is a lot of these are the first. Like if you play this one, this is literally the first time I ever sang this in public.
If you have 10 extra minutes, we can play it.
Yeah,
If you have 10
yeah.
extra minutes, we can play it.
Yeah.
But now, Julian, play number 6, please.
That's hilarious. Oh, wow. For all the Germans.
Yep. But that's what I want to get to. So, Julian, set up number 12, please. That was Ode to Joy from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
In front, and I was at the Belvedere Castle in front of all of the Austrians and Germans.
In Vienna.
In Vienna. No
where it had its premiere. Now, Speedo and I are both baseball fans. That part of the symphony, among the quartet of singers, he's the leadoff hitter. Mm-hmm. So he really has to score to set everything else in motion. I've heard you do this in New York. I haven't. Did you hear it in Vienna?
You heard that was the best. That was the most of all the ones I've done. That was the most meaningful. Like it was the scariest because of on the Met stage with Lisa Davidson singing right before me the four Strauss songs. So I was like, oh man, no pressure. And then and it came out like it was honestly the best I've ever done it because it had the most at stake, and that's the kind of piece that with knowing what it was for and the moment that
concert for Ukraine,
what it was for and what it stood for, it gave me more strength, and I feel like I stood upon a foundation of to give the best I could possibly give, and it was on, and it's there. You can find the recording on iTunes or Spotify of that. I think it was a concert for Ukraine CD. Everybody who's on that CD was bananas because they really sang with a purpose.
We've sort of covered Speedo's American life, but that's only part of his life because you and I email, but that's because you're here when you're here.
Yeah.
But for most of the
10
past
years.
decade, you lived in Vienna.
In Austria,
In Austria.
Österreich.
And therefore, you, in a way, as an artist, developed in that culture at least as much as here. Talk about that, because the Vienna State Opera, the Theater an der Wien, these are wonderful companies. The culture in Austria and nearby Italy and Germany and Switzerland are incredibly rich because this is their music. We do it in America, and we do it very well in America, but this is theirs. And talk about how you evolved as an artist living in Central Europe, basically in the music capital of Europe.
Of the world.
Of
No,
the world.
I will. The classical music capital, specifically opera music capital of the world, I would say Vienna is, and they the center of the city. Like if you would ask any Austrian person, the center of Austria, it would be Vienna, at Karlsplatz in front of the Wiener Staatsoper. And even if you travel to like Salzkammergut in Austria and meets a fisherman or a person who works at Lidl or Aldi or whatever, they'll know what the Wiener Staatsoper is. You'll be hard pressed to find someone who knows what the Met is on the Upper West Side. You know, like that's unfortunate, but that's the world we live in today.
And by the way, across the street, because I know my Austrian bakeries, across the street from the State Opera is the Aida Bakery.
Yes, which is actually like it's a chain, but
Yeah.
it's ridiculously good.
It is good.
And we'll have a talk about who has the best a cake in Vienna, but that's for another.
Demel.
Yeah, torta. No, I would say Imperial Torta is the best torta. But anyway, no. Imperial Torte. It's at the Imperial Hotel.
It is great.
And it's most people go to the Sacher Torte, which is across from the Staatsoper, which is where it's good, it's decent. But if you want, obviously, what he spoke, Demel has the best Kaiserschmarrn.
Yes.
On the planet, but they also
Yes.
have really good torts.
Yes.
But my favorite tort
Strudel.
is my favorite tort is at the Imperial Hotel. It will blow your mind.
It is great.
But getting to Vienna, you read my CV or my resume, and before I came to the Wiener Staatsoper, I think I came to Wiener Staatsoper in 2014, and I probably had to my name 4 or 5 professional roles to my name, moving to Vienna. And by the end of 4 seasons at the Wiener Staatsoper, I had 42 roles more to my name. I had performed over 250 performances and 42 roles on the Vienna State Opera stage over 4 seasons. Because the Met does the most operas in America by a mile. And the Staatsoper in its prime did twice as much as the Met at its prime. So they did something like 51 productions, I think, one season I was there. 51 opera productions, plus they have a full ballet. So there was a span of time where in 3 weeks, I sang 6 different roles in 5 different languages. So when I say I was put through trial by fire, like I either would sink or I would swim. And a lot of singers go to the Wiener Staatsoper because the ensemble is one of the most famous ensembles in the world. They go there and they disappear because they can't handle it because it's a lot of pressure. It's because you're lucky if you get 2 weeks of rehearsal, nevertheless an orchestra rehearsal. Like I did my first Varlam in Boris without an orchestra rehearsal. Imagine doing your first Varlam in Boris without an orchestra rehearsal. I sing my debut at the Staatsoper in a 2-day rehearsal. I did my debut. I did sing Angelotti for the first time in Tosca with the late Marcello Giordani. On the second day of the opening of the Vienna State Opera, with 2 days rehearsal. So I showed up September 1st, had a rehearsal in a room the size of this room for about 15 minutes. The next day, I had another rehearsal in a smaller room. And then the day after, I had the performance. And I didn't meet the tenor. I didn't meet the soprano. I walked backstage. They showed me the stage. This is your stage. Run here, get your key, go see the painting, have your interaction. And then I saw Marcello. I was like, "Hi, Marcello Giordani." He's like, "Oh, yeah, how you doing?" And I was like, "Good to see you." And then all of a sudden, bum, bum. I'm like, "Oh my God, this is happening! I'm having my debut at the Wiener Staatsoper," and I'm running out and like, "Oh!" And I go back to my room, and the Dominique Mayer, who was the intendant at the time, I think he's in the intendant at La Scala right now.
Scala, yeah.
He came back to my room again. Mind you, I had never met him in person. I had done an audition for him, and Velsamust was the conductor at the time there, the head of music, and
The conductor of the Cleveland Orchestra.
yes,
Yeah.
Franz Velsamust, and so I was so nervous, and he came into my room. He's like, "Yeah, Speedo, He's like, "It was a really good debut," and I was like, "Oh God, he can fire me!" and then the next day they offered me a 4-year extension. So he's been a huge he's been a huge advocator in his time at the Wiener Staatsoper. They were at 97% capacity on tickets on average. I can remember looking into the audience on like a Tuesday singing like La Boheme, and the standing room tickets, which were like €10, were packed full of teenagers and college kids. and it's just a different lifestyle. Like across first of all, it's funded half of their funds are by the government, which changes the game. Here in the U.S., we could use a lot more funding from the government. Whoever the next president is, please. Don't take more money away from us. Yeah. Don't take more money away from us. Give us more money, please. The art's needed. And it was the experience of how Europeans in general cherish their history and their culture, which again, I understand in America, the culture we have is actually pretty new compared to the other cultures of the world. But what we have in America, the assimilation that we have done, what we've created here, is unheard of. You know, we're the greatest nation in the world for a reason, not because of one person or one color or one ethnicity. It's because of the mixture of ethnicities and cultures and languages and music, which is why everything today that is popular is American. Like, because we are that awesome. And we are a combination of Italians, of Germans, of French, of Polish, of Russians, of Africans, of Haitians, of Puerto Ricans. And it makes this country absolutely great. Our diversity.
So I need to tell a story because I do want to play that.
Yeah.
I want to play that.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to participate in the Opera Bowl in Vienna in February of 2016. And it's a wonderful occasion. The food is terrible, actually, but you dress beautifully. It is terrible.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
It is terrible.
Really
but you dress beautifully in the dancing, and the two-star artists that night were Placido Domingo and Danielle Denise, both friends, and it was fantastic. And every taxi driver in Vienna has his opinion about who the best singers are.
The taxi drivers.
We haven't had anyone good since Birgit Nielsen. We haven't had anyone good since Lorenz Melchior or whoever. I knew Richard Strauss, they'll all say. And but anyway, this was 2016. I got a taxi because I was all dressed up and it was winter. And the driver spoke to me in his Austrian-inflected German. I spoke in my American-inflected German. And he said, aber ist besser der Oper in Wien. In other words, the opera is better in Vienna. And I said, it's auch good in America. It's also good in America. Ja, aber wir haben der Speedo. In other words, you may be good in America, but we have Speedo. Did I ever tell you that? I love that.
No, that's awesome.
Ja, aber wir haben der Speedo. The Speedo.
No, it's amazing. The opera community there is special. Like the community there is they're after every performance, no matter if it's a repertory production or a brand new production. Yeah. There's a crowd of people waiting at the stage door to greet the singers, from the smallest to the largest. Like, I can't tell you how many pictures of myself I've signed singing Angelotti or the Bonds, or just because they collect it like baseball cards. Like, opera to them is literally their life. And I miss this. I miss this kind of love of singers. Like, I even thinking about this, like the home I moved into was because the people who owned the home, my first apartment that I moved into with my future wife, I had no money. This place is a brand new building. I'm like looking at it, I'm like, there's no way I can afford this. And I spoke to the owners who were renting it, and they were like, oh, you sing at the Vienna Staatsoper? Like, what show are you singing in? I'm like, oh, I'm singing in blah, blah, blah tomorrow. I was like, oh, I have tickets. It's like, and what other are you singing? I'm like, oh, I'm also singing this and this. Oh, and they're looking, and he's asking his wife, oh, what is it? And they're looking at all their tickets for the season. And they're like, you have to live here. We have to have you here. And a Wiener Staatsoper singer ensemble at our home? And they're like, well, I can't really afford, this much. Oh, how much can you afford? And I should have aimed lower, honestly, thinking back. But I ended up living in this brand new building, right near the Hauptbahnhof, for half of what I thought it would be, because I sing at the Staatsoper. Yeah. Like, it was so special to them to have someone, even in the ensemble, live in their home. Yep. And I got I got reservations to restaurants normal people couldn't get into, because I was like, oh, I'm coming from Aida. And, oh, at the Staatsoper? You at our restaurant? Like, do you want it near the window? Do you want it next to and it was an amazing feeling as an artist to be treated like an artist, and you give your blood, sweat, and tears on the stage, and to get even a little bit of appreciation outside of the stage was something brand new to me, and something now I have to get used to being just normal again. But
and I believe seriously that has deepened your artistry, that you lived for 10 years in that environment, and received not just the affection, but understood the seriousness.
The pressure.
The pressure, the ability to jump in and do something,
Yeah.
but also the seriousness with which this art form can and should be taken. Speedo is embarking gradually, because he's a young man, into the world of Wagner. And he's not leaving us in Italy, I assure you.
Oh, absolutely not.
But Wagner is a whole special thing. I love the works of Wagner. Wagner loved Italy. He composed most of his operas and libretti in Italy or near it. The Ring was mostly composed in Italy. Tristan completely in Italy. Parsifal largely in Italy. So he's Italian with a German name. But he emulated Vincenzo Bellini, was the composer he most admired for his vocal style. So these perceptions we have of, barking or rah, 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 rah in German is really not very accurate. It's very beautiful music. And you went to Florida State University, and recently, a couple of years ago, I think, went there and sang some Wagner at Florida State.
It was the irony is, my opera teacher, Douglas Fisher, who was the co-head of the opera program at Florida State, was retiring. And he called me and asked if I would sing on his retirement concert, where he was want to conduct a bunch of former singers. And he said he's like, what do you want to sing? And I was like, well, I don't know. Which would you want to conduct me? And he's like, I've never conducted Wagner, and I think your voice would be perfect for it. So he was like, do you want to sing Wagner? And I was like, well, let me look what I can sing. And I it was actually the year after COVID, and I had been experimenting, because I've been a pretend bass pretty much half my life, like where I pretended to be a bass, but I'm not really. I'm a bass-baritone. And so I thought, why not try this aria? So I'd only been practicing it with my coach in Austria. I had never sung it in person in front of anybody. And so what you're about to hear now is I said, why not sing it with an orchestra for the first time? Let's go. So I sang the aria from Der Flieger der Holländer, Dutchman's entrance aria, his grand entrance, and with an orchestra. By the way, that you're hearing right now, I flew in the day before.
I remember that.
Rehearsed this the day of, and then sang this on your recording here the night of. So I had never performed it in public, even with piano. So you're about to hear it with an orchestra. Let's go.
So Julian, that, and then set up after number 13, which will be our last selection. This is 9 minutes.
That's Douglas Fisher, and this is the FSU College Orchestra. Going off the rust.
In
Not bad for a college orchestra, right?
Okay, just 1 second, 1 second. Julian, just wait 1 second. So to,
Oh my God, this. Oh, Lord.
so to conclude,
Yeah.
our wonderful guest tonight, Ryan Speedo Green, after his years in Vienna, although he sang here a lot and learned here a lot, but his formation was in Vienna, is now at another level of artistry and stardom. And we Americans, especially New Yorkers, are lucky that he said goodbye to Vienna and very, 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 very recently has planted roots here.
Yeah, I'm back.
So we will have the benefit of him for a long time to come in our theaters, especially here at the Met.
You will be seeing me a lot.
But he said goodbye to Vienna in a very special way, so here we go.
Oh, no.
Not Auf Wiedersehen.
No, definitely not. Oh, God. Karaoke, let's go. Oh, man.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York. These vagabond shoes are longing to stray.
How did you find that?
Right through the very heart of it in old New York. I want to wake up in a city that never sleeps
Hide behind this hat.
and find I'm king of the hill, top of the heap. These little town blues are melting away. I'll make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it
It's true.
anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York. New York, New York. I want to wake up in a city that never sleeps and find I'm a number one, top of the list, king of the hill, a number one. These little town blues
Where's my bass?
are melting away. I want to make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York, New York.
Oh, my gosh. Someday my kids will see that video, and I will hide.
Thank you, Speedo. Thank you, Ryan Speedo Green. My goal tonight was to really show the man that I've come to know, thankfully as a friend, over these
Yeah.
years, but also as someone who really knows opera, who knows that this is once in a generation. So therefore, I'm very honored that you were here. I'm very honored that you can sing everything from Mussorgsky to Kander and Webb, Kander and Ebb, and we'll see you at the Met.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me, Fred. And also, just if anything, opera it's an art form that has changed my life, and I assume since you guys are here, that's an opera form that has changed your lives. And continue to support not only the current talent, but in any way that you can support the young talent that's coming up, because who knows what opera could be for a singer. It could be therapeutic. It could be their chance to change their lives. For me, it literally changed my life. Like, I am sitting here today and not in like a jail cell because of opera. And if you read my book, you'll find out. But no, opera is an amazing art form, and literally, as I said, the greatest of all art forms put together. Continue to support this man and support our art form. Thank you.
Einfach.